Is your approach to fitness leaving gains on the table? Well, stay tuned and find out. So, fitness is actually more than what people think. It's not just about bulging biceps like these guys over here. It's more or just like lifting a lot of heavy weights or just being very skinny, having weight like a tight waistline. It's more than those surface level things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But today we're going to be going into what truly is fitness. And today, speaking about fitness from a neuroscience perspective, we have the experts, Gina, DeAndrea Penna, joining us.
So, as I've been finishing my PhD in neuroscience and starting a business as a fitness coach, I've kind of come to integrate my two passions and look at health neuroscience. And as I've been diving into that research, I've really kind of come to reframe fitness as this holistic idea that involves the interconnected nature of the mind, body, and brain. And so really, if you want to optimize one, so if you want to optimize physical health, you also need to optimize mental health because they're all connected. And we're going to explain why today.
So to start off with, Gina, do you mind telling us what adaptability really is?
Yeah, so I like to define fitness really as adaptability. Like, think of Darwin's survival of the fittest, right? Survival of the fittest really means survival of the most adaptable. Whatever, species was able to adapt to the change in environments is the species that would survive. And, humans are just another species. So adaptation is really what governs a lot of our physiology, psychology, like a lot of the way we are. And in that sense, fitness is the ability to adapt so that you can survive and excel in a changing environment. So, for example, a lot of things that we see in the human body and brain are really just adaptations, whether that's growing muscle, building strength, honing, your attention span. All these are adaptations that the body undergoes in order to make you better at whatever it is that you're doing or whatever the demands the environment puts on you.
And would you mind us telling us a little bit more about what the reactive mode and reflective mode and how that works?
Yeah, so when it comes to adaptation, there are pivotal roles of what I like to call these two different modes of being, which are reactive mode and reflective mode. And why I kind of use these kind of gross modes is because, we like to say, there's this system in the brain that does that, or there's this circuit that does that. But really that's us imposing structure on the brain, when the brain in itself, it doesn't really care about our understanding of it. It just cares about what works. So when you really dig into the science of it, everything is connected. There are bi-directional, relationships and connections between different regions between the brain and the body. And so when I'm talking about reactive and reflective mode, I'm talking about these total mind, body, brain, even behavior modes of being. So reactive mode is related to the stress response. So in the stress response, the sympathetic nervous system is activated, and it involves areas of the brain like the amygdala, which is involved in things like fear conditioning, and along with other subcortical regions, so things that are involved in habit formation, kind of working off of just basic impulses and urges. And it also involves the HPA axis, which is commonly associated with stress. So in reactive mode, we're more likely to just kind of act without thinking, to act on our impulses, to search for immediate gratification, to do something that seems good right now, even if you have longer term goals that it would not benefit. When we're highly stressed, we tend to kind of act without a filter, not think about how our actions may influence others. We're not really socially engaged. We're more kind of self-focused most of the time. And then reflective mode involves the parasympathetic nervous system, which is involved the rest and digest system, or the relaxation system, and the prefrontal cortex, along with other areas, of course, for example, the hippocampus. And so during reflective mode, you're able to kind of take a step back, think delay gratification for longer term goals, plan, socially engage, care about others, and we really need a balance of these two modes to function well and adapt and excel in life, because really everything is a balance. So like reactive mode is good because occasionally you need to act more than occasionally you need to act, and sometimes we do need to act impulsively if there is like a real danger that you need to tend to immediately. And obviously we also need to reflect, we need to recover, otherwise we break down. So it's really a balance, the interplay of these two systems constantly, that allows for us to be healthy, fit, succeed in life. So for example, something like building muscle, you need to get in that reactive mode when you're tearing down muscle fibers in the gym, when you're hitting things hard, but you don't really build muscle if you can't recover, and that recovery requires the reflective mode. And then similarly for like more cognitive performance, like attention, it's also this balance of reactive and reflective mode, because there's this optimal amount of arousal that you want to perform at your best. Too little isn't good and too much isn't good either. So once again, it's kind of like coordinating between these two systems to optimize performance.
And then you might tell us a little bit more about like the holistic mind-body-brain connection.
Yeah, so since reactive and reflective mode they refer to this holistic kind of way of being. It's the interaction between the mind, brain, and the body, so much so that like it's kind of even silly to differentiate them, because they're just so highly connected. But so for example, with the stress response, right, like it's a whole body response, but you can look at it at like the peripheral level or the physiological level. Like you can look at things like heart rate variability, illnesses that seem to affect primarily the body, and really those trickle up to the brain. So like if your body is in reactive mode, that can then put your brain into reactive mode, such that areas like your prefrontal cortex, which are involved in self-regulation, higher cognitive functioning, they are now less active. It kind of shifts the proportionality of what areas are more active and which areas are least active.
You have also been talking about society and how that's shaping our brains, possibly causing some de-evolution. Mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so today we see the increased prevalence of a lot of different illnesses. Now, usually people don't die of acute illness these days, but there is a lot of chronic disease. And often when you look at the chronic disease, even if it's something like diabetes or cardiovascular disease, these things don't just affect the body. There are often also effects on mental health. And so it's not really any surprise that with the rise in chronic disease, we also see increasingly poor mental health. And I suspect that a lot of it is due to the poor lifestyle that's kind of supported by modern society today. Whether it's, increased consumption of ultra-processed food, which then, increases the risk of things like obesity and cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, diabetes, all of these things, as well as a sedentary lifestyle, which isn't good for the brain or body because it all interacts. And then, of course, chronic stress. Chronic stress always puts you in that reactive mode all the time, which eventually you're going to break down. And then in addition to that, there's technology and social media, which once again favors that reactive mode, the immediate gratification, the immediate reward, the hyper arousing stimuli, everything always catching your attention, always distracting you. These are all constantly putting you in reactive mode.
So is it safe to say that it's sort of like the Matrix, where people are like by society itself just kind of like when they're in the Matrix, they're in reactive mode? But in order to take control of yourself and actually have control kind of like of your own like direction in life, then you need to step into the reflective mode. Kind of like that's getting out of the Matrix itself, so that you're able to chase your own dreams, aspirations, and goals, and not necessarily be reacting to what society is throwing at you, or like kind of being controlled by a lot of like social media, just regular media, controlled by impulses from foods that we eat. So it's more being able to step into the reflective. Do you mind telling us how that could be achieved?
Yeah, so it's, of course, like I said, there's a balance. So it's not like you want to be in reflective mode all the time either, but you do want the balance so that you're sometimes in reactive mode, hopefully not too much for too long, and then also in reflective mode. And I mean, luckily, the way we got ourselves to where we are today, or at least to the devolution of the human mind, brain, body, is through lifestyle choices. So we can also fix ourselves through lifestyle choices. So, we can eat a healthier, more nutritious diet that's, mostly minimally processed foods, fruits, vegetables, fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, enough protein. We can also exercise, whether, that's going for a walk, or I know we're big fans of, lifting some weights, which we could go on about, but that's for another video. And then along with, managing chronic stress, so engaging in meditation, breath work, journaling, getting out in nature, whatever it is that works for you. And then trying to wean yourself off social media a little bit, at least, not be glued to your screen, and making sure that you get enough sleep as well, because that's crucial.
Well, thank you, Gina. The expert Gina joining us here today while I sit next to her, looking very pretty, right? So now, where could people learn more about
the Nexus? Exit the Matrix and enter the Nexus. So if you like this content and you want to learn more, you can follow our YouTube channel. So just hit the subscribe button. You can also check out our Facebook group, which is Mind Body Mastery for High Performers, where you'll get plenty of exclusive content. Also, feel free to comment, share this video, reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Thank you.